Bendiga Dios la pródiga tierra en que nací. No sé si en otro lugar la luna se ve así.
De tu sabor yo me enamoré, de tu color a café.
Tienes el encanto de una flor por descubrir, exótica belleza, un misterio por sentir.
Estás marcada en mi corazón, mi fuente de inspiración.
Bella es mi tierra,
ella es la que estremece todo mi interior.
Ella es mi tierra,
por su pueblo y por su gente Honduras es. Así te amo yo,
Así te añoro yo,
como cuando la mañana espera el sol.
sos la más hermosa y orgulloso estoy de ti. Pintas la nostalgia en una tarde de abril.
Tienes todo lo que amo aquí, un tesoro de país.
ella es mi tierra, ella es la que estremece todo mi interior.
Esta es mi tierra, papá.
Ella es mi tierra, por su pueblo y por su gente Honduras es.
Como no te voy a querer.
Así te amo yo, así te añoro yo, como cuando la mañana espera el sol.
Esta es mi tierra y es la más bella. Tiene un encanto que te va a enamorar.
La canción, la emoción que provoca los latidos de mi
Ella es
corazón.
mi tierra, ella es la que estremece todo mi interior. Ella es mi tierra, por su pueblo y por su gente Honduras es. Así te amo yo, así te añoro yo, como cuando la mañana espera el sol. Ella es mi tierra, ella es la que estremece todo mi interior. Bella es mi tierra, por su pueblo y por su gente Honduras es. Así te amo yo, así te añoro yo,
Así te amo yo, así te añoro yo.
así te amo yo, así te añoro yo, como cuando la mañana espera el sol.
Soy de mi tierra,
Así te amo yo.
Tienes que quererla.
Bella es mi tierra.
Ella es mi tierra, ella es la que estremece mi interior. Así le amo yo, así te añoro yo. Ella es mi tierra. Honduras es mi tierra.
Wow, welcome. Day 2. Todavía creo, hi everyone, hello. I think that we are still with the energy and the adrenaline from the beginning of the summit online. Um, Today we have Knellee Bisram from AHAM Education. She is with us today. And anyone who is joining us on the live stream via YouTube, para todos los que están uniendo por medio del en vivo por YouTube, pueden ir a Regenera Travel y ahí hay un enlace para agregarse gratis por el lanzamiento. Puedes ser parte de todo eso y recibir el primer módulo completamente gratis. So we have Knellee here with us and es un gran placer, Nell. Cuéntanos un poquito de quién eres, qué es AHAM y qué tiene preparado para nosotros hoy. Who are you? What are you about? And what do you have prepared for us today?
One second. Okay, here we go. So good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. And welcome to Regeneration from the Inside Out. My name is Knellee Bisram, and I am really thrilled to be here today. I actually I want to say I'm still regenerating myself from a trip. It's actually something that I do intentionally. I was in New York Climate Week and the UN General Assembly, the 80th anniversary of the UN General Assembly last week. And I realized that it takes me about 2 to 3 days to regenerate myself after traveling. So talk about like upon on Regenera travel, right? So I'm
Yeah,
still regenerating myself after traveling because being in New York City isn't always a regenerative experience, right?
I
Um,
hear you.
so the first thing that I'll say is to just bear with me today as I show up with all my imperfections. And I think we could all relate to that. So I actually have some slides. I typically don't use slides, but I think because some folks may be rewatching or maybe jumping in at different points,
Yeah,
I might share the slides and I might show some content. But I think for the next 90 minutes or so, I mean, I have 2 hours, but maybe we need to end on time. I'm not sure.
yeah.
You
We'll
let
see.
me
We'll
know
see
how
how
much
it
time we
goes.
have if I
Yeah,
need to wrap it. Yeah. So and Vienna and Suzanne, thank you so much for all of the hard work that you've put into this event. And the way that you and your team have pivoted from the excitement of an in-person event to now this extraordinary virtual summit that is even more expansive than we could have imagined. I'm really just excited to listen to all of the other speakers. So a little bit about me. And actually, before you begin, I just want to acknowledge that where I am physically located is in South Florida, United States, which is the land of the Taino, Tequesta, and Seminole. And I just want to acknowledge that this land is land that is not only the ancestral land of these people, but that they continue to live among us today. And so I was with some of my indigenous tribal friends during Climate Week, and they talked about doing land acknowledgements that are pure tokenisms of just kind of checking a box. And so today I mention it not to check a box, but to remember that we are here because someone died or someone gave life in order for us to be here. So wherever you are in the world, I just want you to take a moment and recognize that there's a history where you are. So I know Vienna and Suzanne, you are in the lands of maybe the Lenca or the other tribal peoples that continue to reside among us today. And they tend to be the ones that are suffering the most, that have suffered the most in order for our people to migrate to the lands where we are, or for our ancestors to have settled here. And they continue to be the ones that suffer the most from the ecological crisis. And yet they are the ones with all of the solutions. So the first thing that I want to say is that if you're inspired to do anything today as a result of this session, other than taking care of yourself, it would be to give resources to the local tribal communities wherever you are. And give can be donating your time. It could be listening. It could be including them. But most importantly, give them resources, like sacrifice the cup of coffee or whatever it is, whatever indulgence you give yourself. If you just think, how could this continue to give life and regenerate those communities if I just gave a little, and if I learned the history of where I'm from, and I think about, the impact and my carbon footprint in my community, how it's impacting those communities that bear so much wisdom, and yet they suffer the most. So I'm doing my best so that it's not like a tokenized version of a land acknowledgement, but I do want to acknowledge that. And I want to acknowledge my people, because I'm now 2 places removed from the land of my people in India. So I come from, the mountains of northern India, which I only really found out like recently. And I also come from Trinidad and Tobago, where, it's the land of the Caribe and the Arawaks. And those are not even the original names of those tribes. But just to acknowledge that now as an immigrant in the United States, now as an American, I bring all of these people with me, and I bring all of those experiences and all of those lands with me. So however I show up today is as a result of all of their experiences, right? Like I'm standing on their shoulders, and I'm standing on the shoulders of my ancestors, who include my father, my brother, my grandfather, my great-grandparents. And I'm proud to say that I have a grandmother who's 95 years old, who I continue to learn from. And so I would say that, being in this summit, I feel like more than the academic expertise that I might have, and sort of there are many experts here, right? And I've learned a lot in education and formal education, but I think the learning that prepares me to even speak today is really my history. And it's not so much my history as much as it is my inquiry into my own history, and the acknowledgement of the wealth and the gifts and the wisdom that comes from those traditions, both the ones that are in my lineage and the ones that I've gathered from the people that I've learned from, when I am deeply listening. So I think it's really important to say that, because we live in a world where we all live in a post-colonial society somewhere or the other. Even if we live in Scandinavian countries, right? We're still experiencing a flavor of the world that came out of colonialism. And part of what I think regeneration is about, and part of my intention today is for us to define what regeneration means for us, because unless it's something that's coming from the heart, that's something that's coming from who we are, it's just going to be another thing, external concept we learn, and we have to strategize. And so I want to take the word strategy out of it until we get to the part where we have to deal with stakeholders. Leave the word strategy out of the equation. So when we think about regeneration, it's really important to think about, who am I, where am I coming from, and how can I undo the conditioning that caused me to live in disharmony with myself, with my community, and with our relatives, our kin, our nature kin, right? Whether they're the beasts that walk the earth, or the plants or the trees or the ecosystem, where we have forgotten to see them as relatives. So I've already gone off of my slide deck, like I'm not even so I'm
No, but it is interesting, I mean, we are about Regenera Travel Summit. So just the whole idea of how you brought you brought to light a deeper perspective of how we perceive regenerate. One, when you talk about a trip, everybody talks about jet lag and how tired we get. But then you brought into it, like you recognize how much time you need to regenerate. I also did one of the courses that Knellee has, which is the Be Nature one. And, it brought to light, so sometimes you think you're taking care of yourself, but sometimes you don't realize how much we do not pause in the day when we are on that constant run, 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 move, move, move. So we think like when we stop to park the car or we stop to go into a place or we stop to move from one place to another, that we're pausing, but actually pausing to take into stock, how am I feeling right now? And that kind of leads to burnout eventually. And I can speak of something that was like that. So recognizing how I feel after a long trip, recognizing how we feel after high adrenaline moments, recognizing where we were at and how those things impact our continuous well-being and how that is connected to our ancestry, where we come from, who we are, and the practices that they did, the practices that we came from. I remember the storytelling of sitting with my cousins, listening to my grandparents, my great grandparents tell us the stories of what it was like when they were children. And that's something that I've tried to recultivate with my children, but it's not easy today. It's not easy to have those moments of reconnecting. So I find it very interesting that you've moved with the physical regeneration to our ancestral regeneration to connecting to who we are. And here we are with Knellee on regeneration from inside out. So Knellee, the stage is yours. And welcome everyone again to our day 2 Regenera Travel Summit. And enjoy all that Knellee and AHAM Education has to present and share.
So I just want to point our attention to, thank you, Suzanne, and I'm gonna ask you and Vienna a question if Vienna is still here with us. So in a moment. So a few things. So there's Marshall B. Rosenberg is the founder of Nonviolent Communication, which in and of itself is a regenerative practice that's part of our program. Our survival as a species depends on our ability to recognize that our well-being and the well-being of others are in fact one and the same. I mean, that really sums up what I was saying just now. There is no time, there's no space, there's no there's a lot of diversity, but when we look at it this way, we realize that regeneration is the thread of humanity. It is the thread of humanity. So Suzanne talked about the power pause, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because we start everything with a power pause. And so pausing is a natural phenomena of life. It is a natural phenomena of it's a universal law, if you will, because all life is either being born, growing and expanding, or dissolving and resting. So in the microcycles of our lives, pausing not only allows us to reset as individuals, but it allows us to merge into the other cycles that are happening. And I'm going to talk about moving beyond just regenerating on the individual level and how we can sync with the patterns of nature to regenerate ourselves, but also to find answers. Okay, so we're going to start with a power pause. And so the power pause is very simple. The thing that allows us to even experience our existence are our 5 senses. So I'm going to walk us through a sensory pause, and I'm going to ask Vienna and Suzanne to play with me. And for those of you watching, whether you're watching while this is live or you're watching the recap, you can do this with us. And so, and you can drop your comments in the YouTube. Please interact with us so we can have a sense of how this is landing for you. Even though we kind of have a sense of how it's going to land, it's always interesting to see what comes up. So when we pause, the first thing, if we think of it as the ABCD, the ABCDs of power pausing, A is anatomy. So anatomy is How are we holding the body? So feet on the ground, firmly planted. You can do this standing or sitting. And just becoming aware of the physical body, starting with the toes, the feet on the ground, and then letting the attention travel to the legs, to the hips, and just aware as we move from the hips to the torso, aware of how the torso is being held. Is there slouching? Is there leaning? And just making minor adjustments so that the body is being held in an upright and dignified way where the energy can flow. Checking in with the shoulders, the neck, letting the hands rest on the thighs. And now becoming aware of the breath. So continuing with this sense of touch. Feeling the touch of the breath as it gently moves from inhaling into the nostrils, back of the throat, the chest, the belly, feeling the expansion and contraction, the out breath. And so whenever the mind wanders, we can come back to this breath. Just as a way to anchor the attention in the here and now. An active mind is a healthy mind, and we can train the mind to be present. We can direct the mind to be how it needs to be now. So with an open, curious heart, when the mind wanders without judging ourselves, we just come back to sensing the breath, to being with the breath without trying to change it or fix it. And now bringing the awareness, opening it up a little bit, having a sense of how the elements are interplaying. So this breath is made up of air, the air element. And through this air element, we are connected to all forms of life that take breath. Including other animals, other creatures, including trees, microorganisms in the soil. So breath is breathing all other forms of life, even if they are taking in or nourished by different types of different types of chemical components. So for the human body, it might be oxygen. For trees, it's carbon dioxide. For soil, it gets its richness from nitrogen. And yet it's one breath breathing this body. breathing the soil, the trees, other life forms. And breathing even water, breathing fire, keeping the fire alive, and transported through space. So just this breath allows us to experience full interconnection with all forms of life. And we can expand our awareness through sound. So just listening to the sounds near and far, sounds of animate and inanimate objects. The sounds even in the mind. Hearing sounds near and far. And now let the listening join with the silence. And so opening up this social and spatial awareness through listening, dropping into the silence, the container of all sound. And the container for witnessing all experience, sensory, thought, and emotion. Just resting here in the silence for a few more moments. And remembering that as we bring this exercise to a close, that the exercise is intended to train ourselves, to train our nervous system, to return to this place of rest as a natural part of our cycle. And when we pause, we're really not doing anything. The beauty of life is that when we pause, we allow life to regenerate itself. And so pausing is a way to move out of our own way so we can allow this body to regenerate itself. And allow ourselves to interbe with the web of life, to simply witness its ebb and flow, to witness its rise and fall. And so whenever you're ready, if you are practicing with us, you can transition back by just bringing a little bit of movement to the body, just to say that I am here, I'm paying attention, fluttering the eyes open. And I'm gonna move into the content because I'm looking at the time. And before I do, I just want to invite Vienna and Suzanne just to share some short, just your short reflections. So the reflection is not my opinion of what I experienced. So we quickly go into filtering, right? Especially because we're publicly facing an audience right now. But if we could just speak directly from the experience, whether it's a sensing from a sensory perspective, or maybe there were thoughts that came up, or maybe there's some kind of general attitude or emotion or feeling that's kind of present in your experience now. This is important. So anything you want to share, and the audience, if you can type, even if you're not watching in real time, if you can type a comment just to say what came up in your experience.
Well, for me, we've been with a lot of hectic movements. It's been a lot of like pressure and adrenaline and like flying very high in terms of getting things done and stretching the hours. So the moment that when I just started getting quieter and quieter with the body scan, I realized that I have my my left shoulder is actually tighter than it should be in terms of like feeling like a knot just underneath my shoulders and my back. So it was kind of like listening and wanting to move and like unknot that knot. But it brought me to that, and actually I felt rested in the silence of letting your voice. I think I've gotten better at letting your voice like I think I've gotten better at letting you guide me through this process so that I can actually rest in the process and not do the other part of like what you were saying, like, is this working, or turning off the part of my mind that would be questioning what am I doing or what am I done doing. I think in this just little moment, I think I did that better for myself. I can see that much because I did feel rested. And I'm thinking, I hope Vienna didn't fall asleep. I hope Vienna didn't fall asleep in it all. But I do feel I feel more invigorated and I feel rested. That's me. Vienna?
Same. The truth is that for me, it is very hard to pause. I'm very like, I'm a workaholic and I need to work on that. I need to work on, resting, pausing. And people tell me like, Vienna, you're gonna get sick. Like you don't stop. And it's true. And I have to force myself, no, like to have a time to pause. And it's so difficult for me. And like, well, the day before yesterday, I was working like until 4 something a.m. and I had to wake up at 5 something for the inauguration of the summit. But I said I need to rest at least 1 hour. I wasn't able to shut down. My brain was always thinking, so I didn't rest 1 minute. And then when you were yesterday giving your little like presentation, like preview, I fell asleep almost instantly, and I couldn't. And I was, and then it was so funny because I just got back home and I fell asleep. I slept and I woke up like at 7. I just had something to eat and I slept again like until 8 a.m. today. Incredible, like almost 24 hours sleeping, and I also had like a back pain. I think it was the stress also. But
Yeah.
now after this, exercise, I feel like the back pain is much better. I feel like much more relaxed now. So yeah, I think it is also important. The rest, even in the Bible, it says, no, you have to take your Shabbat. So rest is also very important. And now I'm recognizing that I need to force myself to do it, because for me it's hard. I always want to be doing things and I'm super active. So for me it's like it's a good reminder also that I need to take care of my mental health as well and my relaxation. So thank you very much, Knellee.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, wonderful to hear. You both just prove my theory. And that is, so let me just jump back to my slides. I want to show you something. So can you see that? So resistance to what?
Right now, no, right now I'm not seeing your feed. I'm not sure.
Okay, hold on. I think all I did was share my screen. No, all I did was put my video in.
The slide was up for a second, but like now, on the live feed, we're seeing you
Okay.
right now. Your screen is sharing.
Okay, so I'm kind of jumping over. I was going to talk a little bit about AHAM, but I can go back to that. So I just want to follow sort of the natural flow of this.
Okay.
One of the intentions of this session is to define what regeneration is, right? And sometimes we define what is, or we define a term based on what it is not. This is like the Socratic method, right? So, or what is in the way. It helps us to get closer to how we can embody that. So one of the things that came up in just what you shared, so we did an exercise of pausing. Pausing is the most accessible way to regenerate because it means that we stop human impulse to do and to solve and to extract and to push and to resist what is. Resistance is one word that defines all of that. Resistance simply means that something is happening, and whether it's because of fear or some other impulse, right? We're not allowing the flow. And so regeneration is a flow. And so when we are resisting what is, that is the barrier to regeneration. So rather than regeneration being so much doing something, and I know when we get into sort of the tangible space of, well, what does regenerative travel and tourism look like? There is doing, but I'm going to talk about the inner development framework and just our framework. But at its core, regeneration is about letting go of resistance to what is. Because once there is resistance, we are no longer regenerating. Once there is resistance to what is, including the climate crisis, this resistance that we feel, if we are acting based on resisting what is, we are not regenerating. So a fundamental principle of regeneration, even in the travel industry, is letting go of this resistance and dropping into what is the natural flow here. So, and I see that manifested in many ways in the positive, right? In even who's invited to this summit, who are the speakers, because they are all of them that I've heard so far are talking about allowing nature to dictate the path forward. And that is a way to move away from, that is a way to not resist. That is a way to drop into the flow of life and to drop into the cycle, right? So I think this is a really easy way, an accessible way to check ourselves, right? So both Suzanne and Vienna talked about sensations in the body. You talked about how stressful even preparing this is. And so it's not to say that there's anything wrong with resistance. Resistance is there for us to know that we are operating outside of the flow of life, right? Or that perhaps we have taken on too much. And so when we realize the resistance in our bodies builds up and it creates pain, it creates stagnation, it manifests in different ways. So the body itself tells us when we are resisting, and when we pause, we just realize it. and we can let it go. And there's a pausing that's kind of momentary, and then there's a pausing where it's like, okay, I need a week to really reset, as Suzanne was saying, and to kind of allow the layers of pain and suffering, the traumas that have accumulated because we are constantly resisting and moving forward with it without stopping to heal. And healing is not necessarily an active thing. Healing is simply allowing life to continue to flow so that we can work out the kinks, the blockages that form because of the resistance that happens when we have a traumatic experience, right? Because when we have a traumatic experience, whether it's in traffic or, it's a life-changing moment, it's because our nervous system can't really handle the overwhelm of emotions or the overwhelm of what's happening. And so instinctively, we kind of go into survival mode and the fight or flight mode, right? So that's kind of the neuroscience of resistance and the neuroscience of stress. So, but stress happens because of resistance, because if you think of something coming toward you, right? Something coming toward you, if you allow it to move through, if there's no resistance, it can move through you, then there is no stress. But the minute we stop it and say no, and this is happening subconsciously, right? Or the minute we don't allow ourselves to let go of things if it's too much. Like for instance, you come to the end of the day and you have 10 more things on your list. Powering through, and I know this is, counter the way we typically do things, and that's okay. But powering through is not
the
allowing
superwoman reflex.
it's not allowing the flow of life, and it's resisting, right? It's resisting that the universe is telling us it's nighttime. There's a natural flow of night and day. So regeneration ultimately is about letting go of resistance. And there are many ways that we can do. That's one principle that can really allow us, like if you just wrote that and put it up somewhere, even if you're in a meeting and it's not going the way you want it to, there are other forces at play in the reason why things happen and they don't happen. And so I think what allows us to step into that is trust. So it goes back again to pausing and interbeing with life and with the force of life, whether you believe in a creator or you believe in nature or you don't believe anything. When any human can pause and feel what that feels like, and that reconnecting reminds us that we are not the only part of the equation. And when we remember that we're not the only part of the equation, we're able to trust that something else and other players and other forces are moving the pieces around. And that trust allows us to
I
let
have a
go.
question
Yeah, that
about
trust allows us
trust.
to let go.
I have a question there about trust. Wouldn't trust require a level of vulnerability that sometimes as adults we're not willing to allow ourselves to be that vulnerable?
Well, yes.
Like is that how we learn trust or not to trust? In this case, how it
Well,
impacts?
vulnerability is only a thing when we're resisting. If we're not resisting, vulnerability is as a quality is only possible if we are wearing a mask, right? So the fact that we're wearing a mask means that we've been resisting something. So by the time we get to the point of saying, okay, we need to be vulnerable, it means that there is a mask there. So what is the mask? The mask is, what am I believing? What is the conditioning that's there? What is it? What is the fear that's beneath all of that? And so the opposite of fear is love, right? And so I'm going to go back to the pausing and go back to the interbeing, because when we are in a state of, like when we were doing the practice just now, and we start opening and realizing that we are not separate from each other or from the planet or any form of life, that expansion allows the love to enter, right? And so that love can be experienced as expansion, experienced as kind of just a happy, good feeling. It can be experienced as deep connection. And out of love, the trust, the mask falls off, and that trust, and if you want to say vulnerability, I know vulnerability is a big word, but the only reason vulnerability is vibrating so strong in our world right now is because there's a lot of masking and there's a lot of fear. But if we weren't afraid, we wouldn't need to be vulnerable because we would just be in our natural state, right? So
I'm
yes,
thinking about
vulnerability is important
I'm
because
thinking
we're
about how
meant.
men and boys react to like how they show, because I think as women, for some reason, because we're considered the weaker sex, so we're allowed, or there's an allowance in society for women to be more vulnerable, so we get to like experience, or we get to wear less masks because we can show that side of us when we're feeling tired or we're feeling broken, or we can
Well,
actually show our tears. And sometimes
well,
I think
yeah, we
understanding how
mask at
difficult
different
it is
ways
for
of,
men. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think women are masking too. We're masking as martyrs, right?
yeah,
Because
I
we're
agree with
also
that.
out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't trust our feminine, right? So with men, it's not trusting the world, perhaps. I'm generalizing. And with women, it's
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
trusting our own boundaries. And, the absence of care for the planet is why we're even having this talk about regeneration. And if we consider that everything that's happening in the world, the poly crisis, whether it's the mental health crisis, the climate crisis, social justice issues, the polarity and the extreme points of view we're seeing in the world is a reflection of the human psyche because we're experiencing it, and we're projecting it onto other life forms because, well, we believe we're the most intelligent beings on the planet. We're actually just the most extractive. We're just the most invasive. That doesn't mean we're the most intelligent. So, in order for us to kind of move past that, I just want to come back to um I'm sorry, I lost the thread of what you were saying before, but you were talking about, men and women
From
being
trust, yes, from trust, and how difficult it is for us when vulnerability
yeah. Oh,
isn't, in
so
order
I
to
was
be
talking
vulnerable, to
about
be
care.
trusting.
Yeah.
And then I asked about the fact that I am living in Latin America, and I see sometimes how difficult it is for men to break down that element and to be able to share or get to that place of, so it's sometimes
Well, but it's everything is in relationship. So I don't
correct.
want to separate what's happening with men. That's where I'm going with this. So that is as a function. So if you forget for a moment there are men and there are women, and you just think
Hmm.
of it in terms of the balance again, and this is totally connected to regeneration, right? The balance of that flow, right? There is a lack of trust in how much we can I was talking about all of the crises in the world being a reflection of our psyche. And right now, what's happening is that there is a lack of care. And there's an imbalance of a masculine and energy versus feminine. And when the masculine is out of balance, you get what we have. You get, and that doesn't mean men. It just means that there's an imbalance of dominance, of exploitation, of extraction in some parts of the world. In other parts of the world, that's not true. And so you hear indigenous folks talk about rematriation. And again, it's not about the man and woman thing, even though it might manifest like that in relationships. It's about honoring the feminine part of the cycle of life, right? Or of the web of life. And when we honor what the feminine brings is care, right? So what is care? Care means honoring boundaries. It means there's a time to start, there's a time to stop. Care means that we think of the whole system, that we think in collective versus individualistic ways. Care means service. Care means enoughness, that we don't have to grow and accumulate, that we can be nourished and satisfied by what is enough and be in balance and harmony with nature, right? We need both. And so what does that say? So rather than trying to fix men, even though, or fix anybody, right? The way that I look at it is what is within, and this comes back to regeneration. Regeneration is not about fixing a community or fixing an industry. It's about, from where I sit, how can I come back in balance with myself so that in my spheres of influence, I am modeling that balance. So if I am in relation, going back to your example, because I don't want to ignore your question, if I'm in relation in a community where the masculine is manifesting itself in this particular way, well, what am I mirroring? Am I mirroring boundaries and care? Or to what extent can I improve as a feminine, as a manifestation of the feminine? How can I do that? And so one example I can give is something that I struggle with, which is, the ambition that women have today to be something in the world. Well, where does it come from? It's, and there's nothing wrong with that, but this idea that I'm not enough drives a lot of it. And so some of it is misguided, right? And so coming back to being enough, setting our boundaries, letting go if at the end of the day I don't finish the to-do list, honoring what for me is important in life. If I have a family and I want to balance that with the rest of my life, I have to constantly be checking in and pausing so that I'm honoring what is important. And that means sometimes letting go of the next conference or the next trip or the next project, because it's going to either get in the way of that flow, or it's going to create resistance in me because I'm trying to hold on to too much at once. So this is very, very personal. And at the same time, we can see it projected then in our relationships, right? Because
Well,
when
I think the
yeah.
big thing my brain is still processing is, when you spoke about that mirroring, it just made me come right back to exactly what you're talking about and what we've heard in the podcast and what you are where you're dealing with in terms of the looking inwards, looking at us, because you brought it all the way back to us as the individual in terms of if we see what's missing versus what are we doing in terms of what we put out there. So I think that, it's like it's sitting
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there in and around.
Well, who is experiencing the suffering? We are all experiencing it inside of us, right? We're watching other people suffer. And the only reason it matters is because we are experiencing that inside of us, right? So even when it's not happening to us, the fact that, kind of the event, earthquake or whatever, a hurricane, you know, I was just in New York City and I saw so many homeless people on the street, and I'm like, we're here talking about sustainable development and like we need to take care of this issue right here. But the reason that hurt me is because there is something in me. It still comes back to what is happening inside of me and what choices that I want to make about that. So we've been in this kind of esoteric conversation, and I know not everybody's brains work that way, so I want to bring it back to what does that look like. We talked about and in our Be Nature program, we actually do practices that help us to cultivate those skills. But when we talk about what is regeneration, I just said like what it is, what gets in the way is resistance, resistance to the flow of life, to resistance to natural law. Like And the only way that we are going to understand what natural law is to pause and stop our own impulses of doing and being, right? So how do we regenerate ourselves in harmony with nature and our kin is through being and sensing, and what we did in the exercise just now. And why is this inside out approach fundamental for solving the poly crisis? Well, I think I just explained that, right? Because if we are all living in this way, we actually don't need a summit, because if in a manner of speaking, because everyone is doing their part, right? So we did a practice a moment ago. We talked about addressing the poly crisis. This is what I want when I was saying, what is the manifestation in our psyche, of our psyche, in the world. This is what we're seeing in the world, because this is what is happening on an individual level. And so how do we solve this? We have all of these solutions that are externalized, right? And we're externalizing the solutions because we're not really, no, I shouldn't say we're not, but when we are externalizing the solutions in those situations and moments, we're not looking within for the answers, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's a space for all of it. But the more that we can recognize that this is the truth, that resistance to what is the ultimate barrier to regeneration, then we start to deal with those levels of resistance in ourselves. And then we start to see the resistance in our relationships, and we start to see how, when we block a river from flowing where it needs to flow, that we are resisting the flow of life. We are resisting where the water wants to go. So that deep listening to ourselves, if we are practicing that in nature, we're able to see what does nature want? What is the natural flow here? And are we blocking that as humans, or are we allowing it? So if blocking and resistance is a barrier to regeneration, what allows regeneration is deep listening, a sense of being with, and allowing. And so I want to talk a little bit about, this is a framework, but I just want to acknowledge that this framework is not new. This is a framework that helps the Western mind to process what we're talking about, but it's really the way that communities have lived in harmony with nature and continue to do so just naturally. They don't have a name for it. They don't have a framework. They just are, right? And so I am doing my best in my own imperfect way, through the practices that I learned growing up, to live in this way in the world. And so it's called the Inner Development Goals. And so we did a practice of being, when we did the pausing, being, sensing. The thinking and the cognitive skills came out of when we paused, and then I asked Suzanne and Vienna to share, what did you experience? So then they had to stop, reflect, and think. So there is a space for cognitive, right? But it is in relationship to experience. How am I experiencing this moment? And then the relating has to do with, as I notice my experience, as I expand my sense of being, I can experience the ways in which I am relating to my body, the ways in which I'm relating to being in this session, the ways in which I'm relating to what Suzanne and Vienna are saying, how am I relating to them? And when I experience this expansive way of being, that sense of love and compassion emerges, and that love and compassion is what guides the impulse to collaborate and to act, right? So with AHAM Education, and I didn't, oops, I wanted to just say AHAM Education is, our mission is really to bring these tools of inner development. Oh, hang on. These tools of inner development. Am I blocking my screen? Yeah. So building these
No, you're
inner
good.
capacities. You see it now?
Yeah. We're seeing the AHAM Education screen.
Yes.
Undeserved individuals.
Yes.
Okay.
So our vision is to bring about collective and planetary well-being, but through, this inner development framework is just, it's borrowed from somewhere else. It's not ours. We do have our own framework, our own theory of change rather, but it's the inner development goals are a response to the sustainable development goals, and our work is aligned, 100% aligned with this framework. So our mission is to build these inner capacities because of everything that we just experienced and talk about. In the next 5 years, our goal is to train 1,000 leaders in mindfulness in all of the vehicles, and I'll talk about that in a moment, that help us to create communities of well-being and regeneration. And so we talked a lot about the being and the sensing and all of that, but this is very much an action-oriented mission. It's just that we spend 80% of our time nurturing these inner capacities, because then when we move into collaborating and acting, we want to make sure that it, as much as possible, is infused with the practice and the principles of regeneration and well-being. And we find that when we collaborate and act from that place, the effort is significantly less, because we're not just collaborating with other humans or systems, organizations, we're collaborating with our nature kin as well. And we're recognizing that nature already does a really good job of regenerating herself. And so all we need to do is to find, where do we need to be assistance, right? So that one of the beautiful things that we discover in regeneration is that humans are not the protagonists of regeneration. In fact, we're actually just the assistant. We're the assistants. Nature is her own protagonist. All of our kin are the protagonists. So when we think about regenerating the travel industry, it's more about what are we not doing versus what are we doing to allow that collaborative element where nature is collaborating with us to regenerate life on the planet. So it could look like, for instance, when we think of regeneration, we're thinking more in a cyclical nature, right? So anyway, I don't want to go deep into examples, as I want us to discover that together. This is just a list of who we partner with. So talking about collaboration. And our model of change, our theory of change, and we actually did a practice just now of 1 and 2, which is mindful awareness and wise relating. Is the awareness is the pausing, and the wise relating is reflecting on, how am I in relationship to life? So we talked about vulnerability, we talked about fear, we talked about trust, we talked about resistance. All of this has to do with, how am I relating to, because we're having a human experience, how am I in relationship to my kin? How am I in relationship to the ecosystem? And that investigation allows us to reset, to make choices about how to collaborate and act in tandem, in harmony with other life forces or with the other systems. So when we think about like the sustainable development goals, this actually is the manifestation of living, or it should be really the manifestation of living in harmony with, of regenerating. So really, it's not about sustainability. Sustainability is a byproduct of regeneration. Sustainability happens naturally if we are regenerating. We wouldn't actually need all of these goals if we were living in a regenerative fashion, right? We're living in harmony. So something I want to ask everybody now. This is something we use in our Be Nature program. Which image best describes your relationship with the natural environment? How interconnected are you with nature? So, and this may change, right? This is a self-assessment tool that we use throughout our program. It's really more of a self-check, right? There's some days when you're really, if you ask yourself, when are the moments when I feel separate like this? So maybe we can do this in real time, Vienna and Suzanne. Can you just kind of share where you are now? There's no judgment. And if you just reflect on the past day, when were the moments when you were at different stages? What were the scenarios where you were separate, where yourself and you're being in nature, even though you're aware of it, you don't feel that sense of interbeing and oneness? And when were the moments when you felt no separation? When were the moments where you were aware of it, like Suzanne was saying, like, I'm aware, but I wasn't really allowing myself to just drop in and let go of this ego or this other kind of, you know, resistance that was there. So can you share?
Sure. While you were describing that, Nell, I think I literally saw my lifeline from Trinidad to Honduras, in that when self and nature, um, incredibly enough, even though I'm surrounded by nature, um, in Honduras, when I started living here 25 years ago, it felt a little separate because I came from an island. And on my island, I felt very much like at the bottom, self and nature, very connected. Run away to the beach every weekend, live among the trees. My grandparents were farmers, very, very connected. My mom would plant and we would eat from things that she would grow. So I felt very, very deeply connected to, we ate from the trees. Actually, we have a practice that I grew up with, that I have taught my kids and even my stepkids, that they know that I do it. So it's a practice like after 6 o'clock. It is part of our culture. I grew up as a young Hindu in a Hindu family. We have this thing that after 6 o'clock, my grandparents would say the plants are sleeping. And if you want to go out and pick a fruit or break a leaf or interrupt or disrupt the plant's rest, we would ask permission. And that was something that I grew up with. So it would seem weird. And I remember my stepkids would be like, they would go out and like sometimes we would end up cooking a little later and you would have like culantro ancho growing outside. And I would ask them, go, but ask the leaves permission so you can get. And they're like, what? Why would we do that? That practice was something that was part of my life in Trinidad and Tobago. Came to Honduras and we entered into the mode of building a life together. Building a life together. Um, we wanted to have our own home. We wanted to, not live the life that we lived as children, in certain aspects in terms of finances. We wanted to have financial sustainability. But that required an extreme amount of work on the part of my husband and myself. We both started companies, we both started working, we both was working for a salary and we were generating side incomes. So we were like on a constant work, work, work. And I think I didn't realize that self and nature started separating. We may have gotten the land and we would plant fruit trees and I would find flowers and I would bring, because flowers always remind me of the islands. And I can see that in the self and nature, in the second pick image, the self and nature just intersecting, it would be around, but we were working so much that I don't feel that I actually got to enjoy the part of being at home, enjoy the plants, seeing them. So during COVID was curious that in the COVID moments, I actually was able to be at home, be around the trees we had planted, the flowers we had planted, and kind of get back a little to that and see that. So I feel like I kind of transitioned the circle, and now I I think I'm at a place where I am totally reintegrating. I still need to get my kids to hug trees the way I love hugging trees, but they're not there yet. But they know, like Mom, look at that. They would point out because ever since we would look at the colors of trees, the plants, the flowers, it's something that to respect the nature around them. I think as young adults, I'm beginning to see them walk in that. So I would say that I started off with one practice in our very, very nature and self as one because of the heritage of my grandparents and the land and the respect for what the land gives us as providing food and sustenance. And then I feel as if I separated from that as I got completely immersed in the work life. Work life didn't allow me to be able to do as much. I wasn't planting outside, coming home too tired, tried to have a plan, see plants die, and literally get frustrated with why aren't my plants surviving without recognizing. And something you said earlier on in your presentation, you see that word mirroring? It's just still in my brain. What am I mirroring? And I'm thinking of the plants were dying because they were exhausted. They were not receiving
Yes.
enough care.
So
They were mirroring what
they were
I
speaking
was
back
experiencing,
to, yes,
literally.
because you're
And
not
I was not,
separate from your environment, and they are speaking to you. Like right now, my yard is speaking to me, is telling me exactly what I've been. It's just mirroring right back to me the lack of care from traveling too much. And it's okay to admit that, because that's what allows us to come back to
yeah,
balance. The question is,
totally.
are we listening, and are we collaborating and acting, going back to the theory, right? Are we in wise relationship when we wake up? So when we become aware, right? Like even in the course of preparing for this event, you talked about yesterday, both you and Vienna talked about, we can use that here as well. You talked about the striving. So what is here? So you're both striving, you're feeling the overwhelm. In that moment, you're not feeling one with nature, else you would feel supported, you would feel, a sense of ease and flow, right? And so what gets in the way of this is striving. And why do we strive? We strive because we believe we need to be more, do more, have more. We strive because we're not honoring, we talked about the resistance. We strive because of fear. We strive for so many different reasons. We strive because we think that we believe that doing what we're doing, because everything around us has prepared us in that way, conditioned us in that way, that we think that doing what we're doing is really the pathway to providing the best for our families. And so we become separate. And so this, for me, just to use myself as an example, it can be me at Climate Week. I'm at Climate Week advocating for this down here, but I'm over here, right? I'm over here because I'm striving. I'm striving, talking to funders, talking to, you know what I mean? So it's always happening. It's always happening. And so the key is not so much to judge ourselves about where we are. The key is to check in and say, going back to wise relating, okay, how am I in relationship now? And how can I get back here? And sometimes pausing is enough, and sometimes pausing is not enough. Sometimes we need to remove ourselves. Sometimes we need to change our schedule. Right now, if you're perimenopausing like I am, there are many times that I try to get here and my body is just doing something different. And so I just have to allow myself to go to sleep at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning because I can't sleep. I can't, instead of resisting that, I'm just honoring whatever my body's like doing in this moment and being okay with it, right? And so there's just so much here. There's so much here. Vienna, would you like to say something about this, a reflection?
Yeah, I love it. I love what you have said. I completely agree with you. And I have a friend that is a homeopath. She works just with natural medicine, like plants, herbs, medicine. And she tells me when I was very, very sick one time and I thought I was gonna die, she was like, nature is wise and it all regenerates itself. And I was like, oh. And he said, she said, the most perfect machine God creator is the human body, and the body regenerates itself too.
Yes.
So you just have to take care of it and, and be in harmony with the nature. And, also So take care of it because it's a temple. No, it's your temple, the most sacred thing you have. So yeah, it's very connected with what you are saying. And for example, these days I feel like disconnected also with nature because well, I have been doing everything online, no? So I have had to work hours and hours on the computer. And I have a startup, so it's a 100% digital company. So I have to be on the computer a lot. And I feel when I'm just working, online and too much on the screen, I feel I disconnect myself from nature. And I feel also like I was telling you, I have like a back pain.
Yeah.
And but I'm blessed because, well, my mom, she loves nature. She loves gardening. She's like a gardener. She's a retired teacher. So her passion is gardening. She loves flowers. She loves trees. We recently moved to a new a house, the smaller house that we had. We lived here before, but so we moved back to this one because it's smaller, and we will sell the other one, the old one, the big one. So she wanted a smaller thing because now it's just my dad and her, and I come and stay here with them sometimes, but yeah, she wanted like a smaller house, more cozy, and she started building her garden. And wow, now it's blooming. It was like all dirt before, and Susan saw
I
the
saw it.
it,
Yes. I was like, whoa. And
it
she told me, she said, this was just like dead, like recently. And
yeah,
I'm thinking,
there was
so that's
nothing.
regeneration right there, what her
Yeah.
mom
And
created.
like when I saw, because in the other house we had a beautiful garden too that she maintains for years and years. We had like more than 30 years living in this house, and the garden was amazing, and I loved the garden in the other house too. And I was like, oh, I miss the garden, when I came. But she works on it every morning, every afternoon, before the sun gets very strong. She's
Mm-hmm.
always working on the garden, like in the morning, in the afternoon, and she loves it. It's because she loves it. She says it makes me happy to be gardening, to be planting, so it's incredible. Like, and I was like, when I came and I saw the dirt, I was like, oh my God, when is it gonna be green here? Like, I thought it would take 1 year, 2 years and I see now, like it has been just a few months. We moved back in June, on the 5th of June, my birthday. So June, July, August, September, no, 4 months. And it's all blooming. It's all green. It's incredible. I don't know how she has done it, but I'm amazed. I'm like, how is this possible? Nature is incredible. You cannot imagine. All the flowers are flowering. The grass is so green, so beautiful. The trees are growing super fast. It's incredible. I say, wow, nature is amazing. And I just go, well, like when I'm like too stressed, I just go out and like go around, see the flowers, the gardens, the colibris that come. And I just feel a sense of peace. And I thank God for his creation. I say like, wow, God, thank you. Wow, how beautiful is your creation. It's just like a reminder of, wow, all the beautiful things God creates, no? And also when I go and shower, it's funny because my window from the shower sees like to the roof of my neighbor that has like a terrace. And below the terrace, there's a space like from the roof to the wall of the terrace. And there's always two doves, one white one and one gray. And I always see the doves and they're there together. Sometimes they're kissing and like that. And they're like always, cuddling the doves. So I don't know. I just feel so much like ternura, how do you say?
Tenderness.
Tenderness, the tenderness
Tenderness
and the
to see how
caring.
how animals treat each other as well with so much care and everything. And they all also, like you say, Susan, Knellee, they're also intelligent. They also feel, they care for each other, because I can see how really they are kissing and they are like taking
And
care of themselves, cleaning their
you're
wings.
not, and they're
Oh,
not stressed out at the end of the day unless you changed their, well, we've changed their ability to live in a natural world because we've
Yes.
imposed a domesticated lifestyle on them. But even if you just allow them to be in their environment, like we have two cats, if you just spend your day observing your pet and just let them be, whatever they want to do, you let them do that. It will show you what living in harmony with nature is.
Yes.
And
And when I feel like one with nature is when I'm on adventure, when I'm on the field work, when I'm doing the tours and I'm in the middle of waterfalls, climbing waterfalls with a rope and, the water is falling. And when I'm like in the rivers and in climbing volcanoes, hiking, or in the middle of the jungle, watching the monkeys in
Oh
their
my God, I'm getting
habitat.
nostalgic. I'm just getting nostalgic thinking of all
oh,
the stuff I used
I
to
want to
do.
pause. I want to
That's
pause
when I feel
there.
one with nature.
I want to pause us there because you are describing, in a way, one of the powers in one of our practices that we do, because we do this online course and people are like, how are you gonna promote be nature? It's be dot nature. So it's be, pause, and nature. Because what you're describing with the visualization, like you're talking about it and Suzanne is lighting up, right? And just the images, right? So we have a gift as humans to imagine. And I'm pretty sure, we're discovering that octopus and elephants and whales and dolphins and we know cats are super intelligent. Like we're discovering the intelligence that they have, but one of the human intelligence is the power of imagination. And in terms of how we can grow regeneration as a lifestyle, and even in tourism, which is what this summit is about, is instead of only thinking of regenerative travel as something that helps us to take care of the earth, regenerative travel can actually be something that supports our regeneration, right?
True. Very
So
good
we
point.
talked about that which makes you feel like literally, if the whole point of travel, which, escapism is beautiful, right? Like I escape into Netflix. I love to travel because it takes me from a life of certainty to a life of uncertainty. And humans need that uncertainty in order to feel alive and to feel like we're expanding. When we are in nature, some of the eco-psychology of and you've all touched on this already, is that, you talk about forest bathing, there's certain phytonutrients that we absorb just from being among the trees. It goes beyond the oxygen and all of that stuff. So it actually allows us to do something called, and this is connected to sort of the cycle that I showed you around how are we in relationship. If we're there with our earbuds on and we listen to music, we're disconnected. But if we open ourselves when we are in a natural environment, we allow ourselves to be co-regulated with our nature kin, right? So it could be with a pet. It could be like when my cat jumps up on my lap, because it's her choice, right? It's not when I want, it's when she wants. But it's really when she senses my vibration that this is a welcoming environment. Because animals know, right? So
Yes.
when I create a welcoming environment here, when I open myself,
True.
then I can receive that healing power of nature. And so for my cat, she's sitting on my lap and she's purring and she's allowing me to pet her. Or she'll come up and randomly like give me a little kiss on my nose or something like this. And in that moment I experience that deep connection and I experience rejuvenation.
Mhm. And it happens the same.
So
Sorry, it happens. I just don't want to forget it happens the same with humans too. Like at least it happens to me. Like for example, with my mom, when my mom is like stressed, I get stressed too. And I answer her, when she's like, like, arguing and I react the same and I cannot help it. I try to control it, but And when she's so warm and welcoming and sweet, it makes me also feel like that. It makes me also want to tell her nice things, that I love her. I want to hug her. I love her. So it's so funny because also the way that you act with someone also is how it's gonna come back to you, no?
Yes.
I have realized that also.
So the reason why I bring this back up on the screen is that when you go outside and you're stressed out, or when you go to your mom's house and you're stressed out, because self and nature, if you just change those words for me and other kin, right? Me and other kin, because let's face it, we're in human bodies, we experience everything as an individual, right? So we have to remind ourselves that we're not separate. But nature could be your mother. Nature could be any form of life, right? So if you replace this word with me and kin, right? The co-regulating power that we have over each other, any form of life. So the thing is that, when we go into like natural spaces that have not been tampered with, the power of co-regulating comes from the source that has not been tampered with, or that is already in harmony towards the element of nature that is not. So in the example of your mother, if she is really well grounded and you walk into her space stressed out, her presence has the power to co-regulate you. When I did the pause yesterday, and you both said, oh my goodness, I was falling asleep, or I was whatever, right? You gave some examples of how you kind of came back to yourselves. And sleepiness doesn't mean that you're not coming back to yourself. Sleepiness is your awareness about what your body needs. And now you're relating more wisely with your body, because your body's been telling you that you need less rest, but you haven't been listening, right? So that sleepiness is like a signal that you can either pay attention to or not. So the point that I'm making is that the other aspect of this, in terms of, and you both have allowed me to dovetail to where I was going to go next, because we've been talking about just, the regulation of our cells that allows us to regenerate ourselves. Now we're going to move into, for the rest of the session, how can we co-regulate and how can we create impact, right? So that moves like along the spectrum of now from sensing and being and thinking to relating, caring, and acting. So do you see how just in this conversation we're already moving there, because we've addressed this? Does that make sense? So in
I
terms,
would say now, for me, I think like for everything, like a word has been coming out, like from every podcast, every opportunity. And for my brain, I am on mirroring. I think I've always said that nature reflects, like the condition of nature around me reflected the state of mind. If there was disorder around me, there was something in it. But I guess it never occurred to me that I could be mirroring something that was coming from inside of me, as opposed to like seeing it from external to me, as opposed to me impacting on what was also there. So the idea of that, um, that question, that idea of who I am. And definitely that's one of my major takeaways from what it is you've been talking about. So you can take us home with wherever it is where you're going to lead us in the rest of it all.
how
But
much
that's my
do
word from
I have?
this.
Another 30 minutes, or do I have to end here?
No, you can
You
use
can continue.
the third.
Okay,
Yeah.
because what I wanted to, and thank you for that word mirroring. So that's a very interesting word we can unpack, right? Because there's what you mean when you say it, and then there is how it relates back to even the images on the screen that I was showing just now. Because mirroring means that there's two. I am mirroring something, or something is mirroring me, and it can go both ways. It's bi-directional, right? But it again brings up this idea of me and other. And in the images that we had on the screen, I could be mirroring and not know it. It's side by side. It could be intersecting. I have a sense of what's happening, or I can be one with. So when I am one with it, it's not even, it's like beyond the mirror. So when I'm one with, it's when I'm really interbeing, when I'm sensing that which is as myself. So the moment you realize my plants dying outside is me, that is the moment when there's no separation between you and nature. So mirroring is a vehicle that can allow us to move from the separate from kin to one. If we extrapolate that into how can our regenerative tourism industry be the circle of one instead of the two circles, right? Where we know what's possible, but we're still separate. And how can we, if I have a tourism company, right? What I'm going to be thinking of in the way that I work, for instance, is what are the experiences that I can create that allow folks to remember that we're not separate from nature? That's one.
Exactly. Yes, that's what we have been also
Right.
bringing up. Like,
The
you
have
have to know which
right.
companies to work
So
with.
that goes back to the experience of being, the experience of being.
Exactly.
The second way could be, how can I, in my processes, so one is the experience of the beneficiary or the client or what have you. A better question is, how can my way of showing up mirror, to use Suzanne's word, this way of being? So my way of showing up is simply my grounding. So this is where I'm going to invite, if you're in the regenerative tourism industry, take our course, because we'll teach you how to do that. And how can my processes, policies, and practices internally in my company mirror that regenerative quality of where we are in harmony? So if I'm using AI, right? We live in the world that we live in. We want to be efficient. Is it creating harm? Am I thinking of the ways in which I'm creating efficiencies? Is there a balance of care? How am I offset? And if there are activities that I must do because I live in a world where there's garbage and there's, I have to drive a vehicle because this is the way it's set up right now. I'm dealing with reality. How can I come closer to being in harmony with? So it's a very simple question that could have really, really widespread consequences for the ways in which we collaborate and act. And who am I in relationship with in this industry? Are they also following these principles? And it doesn't have to be perfect, but how can I invite that through my own philosophy of who I collaborate with, of what I require of them? So if I have a tour, right? And again, I'm sure folks are already doing this, that you're partnering with chefs and restaurants that are also having a sense of care in the full cycle of life, right? In my policies and practices, I'm doing this great, okay, I got like from the outside, it looks good. But I promise you, people will experience your disharmony if you are not following it in your company, in your organization, in your system. So what does that mean? Are you taking care of your people? Are you trying to grow too fast? Do you have externalized goals? Excuse me. That are creating resistance. Kind of goes back to what we're talking about, resistance. So it's really about fundamentally, are we letting go of the resistance? Are we listening deeply to the earth? And we'll do a practice now. Around listening listening not just to the earth, but listening to kin. So listening to myself, listening to what the other humans in my home need, listening to what the ground that I'm at need, my yard. What do the flowers want? What does the the grass want? What do the beasts want? And we can extrapolate that to whatever context we need to. And from that deep listening and letting go of the resistance, Suzanne talked about asking for permission. That's another way to listen. How do we then make choices about how we relate, how we're in relationship, and how we practice care? Multidimensional care, right? Caring, both relying on that co-regulating factor when we need it, that we're getting the care, and also we're giving the care, right? Through service, through the way our business practices and whatnot. So those are sort of like, and it goes right back to the frameworks that I shared. And so if a company or an organization or a government has like plans of expanding in this area, that it not be just hijacking a new trend, and it's really coming from a place of integrity, of purpose and practice, understanding that we're going to make mistakes, and understanding that we're starting with a very imperfect, broken, patriarchal, and all the stuff system, but that it is possible to work from within the system that is imperfect, and at the same time work towards greater harmony, right, with nature. So what I want to do now is
one point, because I just want to say something here, that I think this point is also very important, and for this summit I just want to recalcar, how do you say, remark it, because this is a very important, this is a super important part you like you just brought up. And that's what we do with Baloo Travel. Baloo Travel is like a broker, no? A broker of sustainable and regenerative experiences. And that's what I focus on. I focus on curating the best tour operators, travel authors, designers, experience designers, DMCs, everything that has to do with travel. And I make sure that they are authentically well, first, good persons themselves, and that they are also trying to do something to improve their community, their stakeholders, and that they are really givers. They are really people that care about the planet, and thank God, God has blessed me with a great network. I have been finding and I'm amazed, and it's so beautiful, to find all these people that are aligned with us. No, there's a lot of people there's still a lot of people that are in the extraction part, that don't care about nature, that they just want to care about themselves. Yes, and that's okay, because that's not our target. That's not what we're focused on, although we invite them to change their mind, to open their mind, and to try these experiences that are different, and maybe I'm sure they will like them, because that has happened already to me, and people then change their mindset. No, they see it's more rewarding even for us to have experiences that are more regenerative. So as a client also, if you want to be more regenerative, and it's a process, because you have to be sustainable and not harm in order to go to regenerative, and to do things that are gonna be beyond, like go and you leave a place cleaner, you go and for example you rescue animals, and that's going beyond, that's already regenerative. No,
yes,
working with the communities, like you say.
so when I was growing up, and I try to pass this on to my children, my parents would say, if you go to somebody's house, leave the place better than, not as you found it, better than you found it. So
Wow.
that has stayed with me. And so when I go to the beach, and I'm going to show a video now on.
Amazing. And that's what regenerative travel is focused on, leaving the destination better than it is at that moment. Wow, it's amazing. So
Yeah.
your parents inculcado, how do you say?
Yeah,
They inculcated you a regenerative mindset.
Yeah, they
Wow,
embedded that.
that's so beautiful.
Yeah. Well,
Amazing.
because again, because of our heritage,
Yeah, our culture. It's
There's
part of our
Amazing.
culture.
That's so cool.
there is a sense of deep time. This is the
To
other thing.
nature.
We think that it's just about us, but we forget that we're going to be ancestors one day,
Yes.
right? And so because, and this is the part where culture is extremely important, investigating our culture. So I want to just show a few slides, and then I was gonna show the whole film, but I think maybe I'll just show the trailer and invite folks to do a film screening so we can do with your organization. There are two things that I want to offer. I want to offer folks to take the Be Nature course so they can learn how to embed everything we've been talking about. You learn it in the course, but you get coaching from myself and my co-facilitator through our community of practice on how to embed these policies and practices and to set these sort of principles or check or postmarks, if you will, benchmarks of what is your sort of threshold for, depending on where you are and what you're doing. So there's one thing. The other thing is we have a documentary series. So far, the first one is out. It's called Healing People, Heal the Planet. It's 20 minutes long. And it's just stories, it's the power of culture and stories.
Wow, that's powerful. The storytelling.
Yeah,
That inspires people a lot.
Yeah, of how we built a community of practice that allowed, if you think of regeneration means restoring, of how we allowed folks to restore their connection to nature, to heal themselves. So at first it was kind of like about me. And then once they were in the natural environment, just naturally what emerged was we need to take care of this beach. And it's a historically Black beach in South Florida, where now, and actually, if anybody's in South Florida, you can join us. So it's now been 5 years since we've been doing this. We do mindful beach cleanups that's focused on this inside out approach to both well-being for ourselves and our ecosystem. So it's ocean conservation, and we've expanded and done more things like sand dune restoration. So what started off as like a healing community has expanded into conservation of the whole ecosystem. And so every time we go to that space, we're sort of re-energizing the space with a new history. So whereas it started off being a space of segregation, right? It's a historically Black beach because that is the location that was given to African Americans to have a beach to go to. But even when that happened, the history of the space is that there was no access road. So people would actually try to swim to the beach and died trying to do that. Then there was a period where they would do the wade-ins, right? So the wade-ins is where they would just go in the water and actually as a form of protest, swim to the beach that was allocated, and people, like I mentioned, died in the process. And so there's this whole history of how that happened. And I have to thank my friends who we partner with Diversity in Aquatics, who teach Black and Brown folks to swim in the United States and around the world. Because without them, I wouldn't have even known about the history of the park. And for them and for us, regeneration starts even way back. It starts with, well, there's a history of disconnection that came from the remnants of slavery and post-colonization, where cultures that were swimming cultures that lived in harmony with nature were disconnected from that because other groups of people rooted them out of their space and actually blocked their access to water and to the beach. So it's really important to understand the ripple effect of that, and how when we talk about regeneration, sometimes we have to go way back into activities that we don't think are connected, because I didn't realize that learning to swim was like the first line of offense, if you will, the first line of restoration, because there's so much fear and anxiety, and now a culture of not going to the beach or a culture of not being in the sun, right? Like in my own heritage, not wanting to be dark skinned led to us not going out in the sun during the day, right? Or a fear of the water or a fear of going in the ocean, because we after 2 or 3 generations of being disconnected, whereas our people were swimmers, now they're no longer swimmers 3, 4 generations later, and we've forgotten that we were. So regeneration in that context starts with even coming back to the space and remembering that I'm connected here, feeling that connection. It also helps to undo intergenerational trauma, right? Which is what we're talking about, of the what we call solastalgia. So this is a word that I want people to really pay attention to. Sola, Solastalgia. Solastalgia means simply disconnection from space. And that can happen across generations. It can happen just in one lifetime, and it can happen in a day, right? When the circles, going back to those images. So solastalgia is something that we have to heal in our culture. Sometimes it happens because of war and people are displaced, right? So if we are not experiencing deep connection to our space and deep connection across time to our ancestors and experiencing life as part of the thread, then we are experiencing solastalgia. And once there is solastalgia, once we are experiencing that disconnection, it is very difficult for us to then try to do economic activities that are regenerative. So it goes beyond just, being present now and feeling in harmony now. There are layers that are in our cultures and are in our families and just sort of lineages and countries that when we start to unpack that, and it doesn't require some like a very long process, but it's just being aware of it. And so, in your community, maybe an act of regeneration or maybe something you can include in your work is around that, is around investigating what are the ways in which people are experiencing solastalgia. And so something simple as taking them to the forest where their people might have been from. Or for me, it's my anticipated trip back to India, just to know, just to feel, just to see how, is there a connection there? Is there something more I can learn about myself, right?
Wow.
Or it might be going to the beach, or it might be, just being in relationship to the space I'm in now, like spending more time there. There's a practice that we do in the nature retreat, which is called nature kinning. Suzanne has done this, which is you literally stay in one space. You don't move around too much. You stay in one space and you get to know the grass, the ants, the tree. You just stay there and you get to know it as you know your own body. So that's another practice that can heal solastalgia. I kind of went off on a tangent, but I wanted to show it. So is that?
Yes, no, I feel that resonated with me. It's so funny what you said from India, because, well, as you know, I also have Austrian roots. My great grandfather was an immigrant from Austria that was brought, he was a veterinarian, so they brought him the Tela Railroad Company, Chiquita Banana, and all this. They brought him to take care of the donkeys, the burritos, the horses. In this time, that was transportation, no? Part of the transportation of the bananas. So here he married an indigenous woman from a small little village from Morazanjoro. And so, and he became part of the family of the indigenous people, no? So partly, he was a European, but he tried to adapt. And he ended up, eating tortillas with mustard because there was no bread here. So he would eat tortillas and put some mustard. Maybe that reminded him a bit of Austria or something. But he was always writing letters, with his family in Austria. And he was
Your name
always
is
in
Vienna.
contact.
I mean,
Yeah, okay, you can see how present Austria is in our family. They even named it like the capital of the country. So yeah, there's a deep love also for Austria in my family because it's part of our roots, no? But as I was born in Honduras, the truth is that I do look Austrian, they say, I don't know, because I have green eyes, I'm blonde, and when I was little, my hair was white. So I looked like I'm like 1 or 2% of Hondurans. There's only like 6 Austrian families in Honduras. So I really people don't see me really Honduran, although I do feel. So I do feel like this type of disconnection. Like I feel I'm from here, but at the same time, I feel some kind like people don't see me like I'm from here or but I recognize I do have other roots. So that I do have my Austrian citizenship too. So I'm by blood I'm Austrian too. I do have my European passport. So that's why I have been living between Europe and Honduras. And my parents have taken me to visit my family to Austria. But I remember the first time I went to Austria, I was super excited because I felt like I'm gonna know part of my identity. I'm gonna get to know part of my identity. No, it's like a discovery. I was super excited and I was like, maybe I will understand more about where I come from because I don't totally understand myself yet. I don't know. And yeah, it's really like that. It's when I went to Austria, I was like, oh, now I know why I am a bit different. And it was so nice to meet my family, my Austrian family, and how different they are because they are fully Austrian, and how also they are very curious about the life in Honduras. Like they like to know stories about Honduras, how Honduras lives, but at the same time there's some similar things, no? Like in Austria, I feel people like a lot nature. They like hiking. There's a lot of mountains in Austria, no? The Alps, and the nature is beautiful. People enjoy nature and good food and being with family. They're like kind of Germans and Italians, a mix. So I don't know. So then
So
it
you're
also made me I don't know, made me understand my roots better, my identity,
yes,
and
beautiful.
feel proud of it.
You actually just did like a mini walkthrough of the activity I was gonna do. So
Sorry.
so that convinces me that we need to do this now. And then maybe what I'll do is show the trailer and I'll talk about the Be Nature. It's because could we do like another 20 minutes or so?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Okay.
You're the only one. You're the protagonist today.
Yeah.
I was
You're our
thinking,
speaker for today.
I was thinking that perhaps we can do it in 2 parts. What if we can definitely show that now, but there's the flow.
So
We
why
do
don't
the
we do this?
activity.
Why don't we do a film screening that's separate and I won't show it?
Yes, I
We'll
was
do a
thinking that we
film
invite everyone
screening.
popcorn and they
Yeah.
can chat and we do the full screening together as a group would be really, really awesome.
Yeah. So so there's a practice that we do in the program. I'm going to do a shorter version of it now. And then I do want to talk about Be Nature because the course starts this week and we have about 5 more spots left. And we want to give half scholarships to everyone that's here watching. So I want to make sure folks know how to go about taking advantage of that. And we also have maybe 1 or 2 full scholarships available for exclusively for indigenous folks who don't really need to do it because they're already living this way. But if they wanted to learn the ways of the Western ways of talking about this, and that they feel that could be an education for them, then we want them to take it up free of charge. So I want to invite you to, and again, I'm speaking, we're all speaking to everyone that's watching as well. So in real time here, and as you're watching, grab a piece of paper, right? So it could be a sheet of paper, it could be sticky notes, whatever you have accessible. And I'm going to guide you through a practice now. So we're going to start without writing or drawing, right? And don't worry about, how well you write or draw. There's no skill level needed other than being able to hold a pen or a pencil. So before we go into that, I want us to come back to, there's a lot of thoughts and beautiful conversation happening, and we're going to put that to rest again. So I'm going to pause again and just feeling our feet and remembering that we're here. So we're downloading, allowing all that came, just let it download through your feet back into the earth. Let it go back into the earth, all of the thoughts. Letting it go through your feet and breathing in and breathing out, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just allowing the body to reset, the mind to reset. Downloading and just emptying for a moment. And so this practice is it's a practice of guided imagery, and it's also a reflective drawing exercise. So we start by, as we notice our breath and as we feel whatever energy we don't need being drained into the earth, it's a practice of remembering and a practice of letting go, and then a practice of gathering and intending. So this body, however it is now, if you'd like to, you can close your eyes, just because it helps with guided imagery. So inviting now to allow yourself to, in this body, just go backwards in time to when this body was, if you're in the middle age or whatever age you are, going back to your childhood, remembering your family, your friends, whoever were your people, whoever were your kin. Maybe there were pets. What was the space you occupied? What were the kin? Were there trees? And then just imagine now you're going back to the time that you were born. Going back, and you may not know the facts, and that's okay, but just imagining your people before you came to be, all of the people that were part of you coming forth into this life. So your parents, the context of their life, their time and space, the lands that they're from, the way they related to the land. Think of your grandparents. You may not know the names, you may not know the faces, but there's definitely grandparents and great-grandparents that came from somewhere. So go as far back as you can. Ideally 7 generations back. And as we go further back, perhaps it's just a question mark, and that's okay. But just imagine filling in the blanks of what you know and you don't know. What might their relationship have been to each other, to other forms of life, to their land? How did they live? How did they mirror the pace of nature, night and day? When did they rise? When did they go to bed? What types of activities did they do? What are the ways in which they might have lived in disharmony? Was there some practices of extraction, of disconnection through their relationships to humans and more than human life forms, through their relationship to the spaces they were in? What were the experiences of solastalgia? Solastalgia meaning disconnection from space. Were they uprooted? Did they move for a better life? Did they impose barriers on spaces? Really doesn't matter which side of the spectrum they're on. What are the ways in which they might have lived in disharmony without judgment? Noticing the emotions that come up when we consider the ways in which our ancestors related to the earth in a disharmonious way. And acknowledging that there might have been out of necessity, they did the best they could with what they knew. So allowing some forgiveness to enter for the ways in which my lineage, my ancestry, might have lived in disharmony with each other and with other kin and with their space. Allowing some forgiveness. I forgive you for all of the ways that you might have lived in disharmony from the earth and from life in general. Even if there was violence, even if there was oppression, allowing forgiveness, and maybe there's not enough forgiveness today for all of it. But radical forgiveness is about forgiving others and forgiving myself for all of the ways that I still harbor this, in ways that are known and unknown to me in my own body and in my own patterns and ways of being. And if forgiveness is not accessible, that's okay. Just acknowledging this is a journey. You can do this again. Taking a deep breath in through the nose, exhaling and sighing. And now changing the image in the mind to what might be some of the ways that they lived in harmony. What were some of the cultural traditions and practices? In some situations, it might be very few things. In some situations, there might be a whole lot there, and it doesn't really matter. There's always something. If we go far back enough, there's always some example of how my kin, my ancestors, human and more than human, lived in balance and harmony with the web of life. How did they honor the cycle of night and day? How did they live in the flow of natural law? How did they listen to the earth and each other? How did they keep traditions alive? Through food, through dance, through culture, through relationship. And at any point in this practice, if you have an impulse to write or draw, you can do this. So it's both contemplative, but it's still contemplative drawing. So we're staying with the imagery that emerges naturally, resisting the urge to put labels. Just allow it to emerge. So what are some of the ways that there were deep listening, deep care, deep interbeing, connection, communion, service, a sense of co-regulating, interbeing, sense of responsibility for what comes later, a way of thinking in circularity, just naturally, before it even became a concept. How did they naturally live this way? What were some of the practices? And so now I invite you to project forward. So even if you don't have offspring or children of your own, even if you don't plan to have, one day recognizing that I too will be an ancestor and my trace will be felt. And so what is the trace I want to leave behind? And that can be a combination of healing, so nostalgia. What is it that I want to heal? What patterns do I want to break that perpetuate disharmony? And what patterns and practices and ways of being do I want to carry forward? Do I not want to break? Do I want to make sure that that continues? Perhaps through culture, tradition, and that I can pass on as an ancestor through my actions, through the education of the generations to come, whether they are my offspring or others, through the ways in which I leave this earth better than I found it. What does that look like? In ways that feel natural and in ways that feel empowering and not overwhelming. In ways that do not create more resistance in my life today. And so this can be actually something very simple. It doesn't have to be grandiose global acts. It can actually be something very, very simple. And so the key is that something that doesn't create more resistance. So taking another minute in silence to wrap up your final thoughts and just to know that you can come back to this exercise again and again. So it's okay if you don't get it all out right now. Just say to yourself that this is so, that whatever moved from the deep past of my ancestry and my choice to deeply reflect, to deeply listen, to deeply transform that which does not serve life on earth, and to be a catalyst for regenerating harmonious relationship, wise relationship, care, and collaboration with the web of life to leave this place better than I found it. Trusting the power of that intention and trusting that whatever little I can do is enough. And trusting that because of this intention, nature will come to my aid and help me. So, I see Suzanne deeply writing, not wanting to stop. So Vienna, I'm going to start with you so Suzanne can, you're probably in the same space, but so this is, this is a short version. We do a practice like this, if there are more components and more reflective, more time. We do it over a couple sessions in the middle of the Be Nature course. And we find that folks are already doing this work. It opens up a whole new dimension for them and for me every time I do this. So I'll just share that for me, just in guiding it, even though I didn't write anything down, what came up for me was radical humility and actually doing less. Like doing less is, for me, what I can leave behind. Less striving, because the striving is actually causing harm. Too much striving. So, and I can speak of all the ways that that's showing up in my family and etc. But I'll leave it there. So Vienna?
Yeah, same. I completely agree with you. And what I drew, it's so funny. I drew some birds.
You can show it on the screen if you want for the benefit of people watching. If you want to share, you have to
I
hold
don't
it
know
close
if
to
you
you.
will see it
You have to
because
hold it close to you. Yeah, there you go.
can
Let
you
me
see it?
see. I'm gonna put it in gallery view. Not gallery, speaker view. Yeah, I can see it. Oh, wow. Cool. Very simple, right?
What is it?
It's just sunshine,
Uh-huh.
a tree, water, and birds. Like
Yeah, the beach.
simple, right?
One of my favorite places to be. I'm so lucky I'm from the Caribbean, or I was born in the Caribbean because I love the beach. I don't know, just feeling the breeze in the sand, how do you say tumbada en la arena? Like laying on the sand, feeling the breeze with the sound of the coconut tree leaves like oh my God, that really, it brings me like, I don't know, it takes me to a world of peace and I feel such a joy. I don't know how to explain. It's so beautiful. I just love, 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 love the beach. And I feel so blessed, so lucky to live close to the beach as well in San Pedro, because we have the beach like 30 minutes, 40 minutes from here. And just going and have some lunch, some conch soup or some fried fish, and then laying down on the sand on the beach, and it's like a perfect day for me. It's like we don't need anything else. Like it's Yeah, I don't know. I just feel so lucky when I do this, and I feel so like I disconnect like from the world, but at the same time I feel also very connected with God, with nature, with myself. So yeah. So I see like my favorite place is the beach.
Yeah, awesome.
And yeah, I also agree with you that I have to take it more easy. I have to also yeah, like feel okay with resting a bit, with slowing down. I don't have to be always in a rush or always doing something. I can take my time, for myself and not feel bad, because sometimes I feel guilty for not doing something. So I have to change this mindset, no?
Yeah, and invest, before we're always quick to change. So what I would say, between what we notice and what we want to change, pause and ask yourself why, what is underneath this impulse?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I believe this?
Mm-hmm.
Because once you discover why you believe it, magically you're able to let go. If you try to change it without the inquiry, then that can produce resistance as well. Do you know what I mean? Because then
Yeah.
it's like, I know it and I want to change it, but why can't I change it? You know? And that creates a little bit of frustration. So it's also about having patience with yourself and realizing that I'm noticing this pattern. So let the curiosity grow your curiosity. If you grow your curiosity, then you're going to begin to see all of you in one random moment. You'll have an insight. Oh, that's where that comes from. And then it's like, just like nature, it unravels itself. So it's also about when I talk about resistance, it's about letting go of all the effort we put even into changing. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
allowing the process to unfold, because it
Unfold
took you
itself.
generations to develop this pattern. It's not going to change overnight. You know what I mean?
Yes, it's not easy.
Yeah. Sue?
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
it got a little emotional to like what came up for me. Um, I think I'm just gonna show. This is what I drew. My inner gypsy. I think this, you might remember part of this girl on campus. The long skirts and the little tops and the bangles and the hair and the wildness, but not wildness in a bad way, just the freedom. The
Yeah.
freedom that she had to, if you wanted to run up a mountain, sleep under the stars, escape to the beach at 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning. Nelly, let's go. Oh my goodness. How restrictive being in a society where violence and insecurity has been like huge flags has made her feel lost. She's felt, a part of me has felt lost. How do I live her
So
at this stage of my life?
so that feeling lost is recognizing your solastalgia.
And that's what was emotional for me
Yeah. So
because
so coming home, what does that look like? Because really and truly, you're already whole and complete, and
it's bringing back the
you're
joy,
already home. So
bringing back the joy, the laughter, the dance. I mean, is the oh my God, I forgot the word in Hindi for it, but there's a word for that dolak that's in the hands. It's a hand drum, but the loud is the drums, is the dancing. It's bringing more of that back into my home with my boys. I mean, any one of my kids, if they were here, including my stepkids, they would be like, mom's in the supermarket, or mom would want to dance, or that part of us that's connected to our Indian heritage is connected to our Trinidadian heritage. We come from a land of song and dance because we celebrated God in every medium that we had. It was celebrated in our dance. It was celebrated in our rhythms, in the way that we played pagua, in the way that we played different celebrations, dressing up. We dressed up for God. We, I would rush to decorate the Bailey, which was the like an altar, in order to with fresh flowers. Flowers were always part of the Bailey because it was always a part of us giving back, like restoring our nature and saying, God, you are the center of our world. And we recognized it by placing elements of nature on the baby. And that girl, that adoradora, I would say in Spanish, that worshiper that would dance under the stars barefoot. And I kind of have a space being recreated in and around me that looks up into the scars and allows me to, I think I'm returning to her. I am returning to her I'm regenerating, and it comes full circle. And if it sounds damn, so this goes live. Ah,
Yeah. Well, the
but
tears,
this is what Be Nature does. One,
well, tears
two,
are, tears it's just tears are
I miss her now. I miss the
yeah, the tears
freedom I
is
felt
the
to be her.
catalyzing happening. It's the transformation, from I like to say it's lodged emotion that is releasing in the form of tears, right?
I miss, I think, and I will say this, for many women out there who got married, somehow it was not easy to maintain being her and be married, and even becoming a mom. I felt like when I became a mom, um I love my children, but they became an extension of who I was. So there's now that they're older, and now that they're able to take care of themselves, and now that they're able to make their own decisions, to a certain extent, I feel like revisiting the essence of who she is, even though I would worry about them and all the things that a mom would do. But there's a joy in this connection that has been sad, and has been this sadness that has been there, that Vienna talked about her mom's garden blooming and everything coming together. And we come back to the word mirroring around me, Nelly. I have been, and I think even on my podcast, if everyone sees and hears, I've been talking about being fascinated with succulents and fascinated with leaves that fall off, and literally life is springing forth from a leaf, not even a root, not even a root grounding. A leaf can bring life, and all around me, there's been all these elements of regeneration, you know, and I see it. I have my desk covered with plants that are growing out of bottles. My mom used to do it. So in a way, I feel like I see the renewal and the regeneration is happening. This conference, this step together with Vienna, John, Theodora, Upendra, with the individuals that we've come together with, we're all taking a step towards, I think, that connection, or that thing that we may in different ways feel disconnected. We're all, it's bringing us into a collective form of connection, in a way seeking something out. And um, thank you for the journey. I have her, I guess I have her deep in my heart, but exterior is, bringing it back up, and seeing it, and all the way through the guided trip. I went up into the mountains of Kashmir, and all the things as a little girl that I admired about, and the desire to go. And it breaks my heart of the wars that are going on in those regions, and how much destruction there is at it. But there's a part of us, that comes from India. There's a part of us that's tied to all of that ancestry and teachings and knowledge and wisdom and so many things that is part of our ancestry. And now my children are Latinos, and they have another history that comes together. It's an Indian Latino history that's coming together. And mommy's eyes, the doctors told her that the color of her eyes, there's a type of anemia that she has that only occurs among the Spanish and the Mediterranean's Islamic individuals. So it's all these connections that when you think deeply, how deeply rooted some connections are, and we may feel disconnected, and why I think identity was always important to me, especially in language. As a language teacher, I always felt it was wrong to impose or walk into a classroom. Okay, change your name. Your name is going to be Paul John Sue. No, I could not do that. What's your name? Ah, Rigoberto. Okay, all right, let's just say Rigoberto in English. Ah, hi everyone, I'm Rigoberto. It sounds different, but you can say it. And because to disconnect a person or change their name for me felt like disconnecting them from their identity if they got accustomed to an English name, as occurred to many of our indentured fathers who came. My great grandfather became James Rajkumar. Rajkumar was passed to his last name rather than being his first name because it was tied to the plantation where he was working. So there's so much to unpack in this, and I know that we have the luxury of having you do this with us. Honestly, it has been a luxury, and I think to have this coaching session, I would say, for Viana and myself, and I know that others will benefit from it when they um, let themselves have the time to go through this. I would definitely there comes a time in our life where we do have to ask, where are we going? What do we want? How do we want to live? And I've known Knellee for a very long time. And the girl I drew, she would have seen me literally emulate that person in real life. And I remember coming to Honduras and someone making the mistake by not understanding my words, and they cut my hair. I wanted layers in my curls, which were longer, and they thought layers were only at the bottom, and the person cut off the length of my hair. And that was a sorrow that I think no one understands, that that was my sorrow. My hair was cut and no one witnessed my pain. I was hurting and no one understood. It's just hair. It wasn't that. It wasn't able to grow back the same way. It changed, it transformed. So some places are not able to go back to how they were. And regeneration is about that deep respect for the brokenness or the things that change and the way it was done, and trying to bring, I guess, Nell, when you said caring, it hit me really hard. Lack of love. When it's not there, then what's missing? It's the love and the caring. So what are we mirroring? If there is that lack in and around us, then it means we do have to do the inner work. Am I being loving enough? Am I mirroring the things that I want? And then if I truly look at it, then I would truly see that perhaps the violence that surrounds us, we've been mirroring violence for so long, we no longer recognize it as something alien to us, that we're not being kind, we're not being open, we're not being the things. And there's an adage that says change begins with us. So it brings it home on a really, really deep level.
Mm,
Really, really deep level.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I mean, I think that resonates with everyone. And when we started off, you talked about vulnerability, and your tears and your willingness to speak from the heart is demonstrative of your desire to remove the mask and to be vulnerable, because we're all walking around with masks. So being vulnerable is a way to move from disconnection to connection, and to move to deep trust, which that deep trust, I think, is fundamental, because there is a lot of distrust, because we are, as humanity, we're in a space where we need to see to believe. And so deep trust is a trust is actually one of the mindfulness attitudes that emerges when we practice. Deep trust allows us to trust the power of nature, to trust that which we do not know, and to live in, the truth is that life is extremely uncertain, and trust allows us to be at ease with moving with what we can see, and trusting that we're going to be cared for the same way that we were cared for before we were even born, that life just cared for us. So that deep trust that life will care for us, and that reciprocity of caring for life, is one of the ways that we grow that trust. Because when we serve and practice care, it is more likely for us to trust that that will be reciprocated back to us, right? So I want to thank you both for being my guinea pigs today to show how these practices work, because we're all about experiences. I want to just give folks some insight into the Be Nature course, and just invite you to participate. I have a handout that I've prepared, and I don't know how we're going to get it. If we can share it online, I'm not sure, maybe on the website.
Send it to us, and we can circulate it among.
Yes, of course. Send me everything, and we can add it to our email list, our emails, our Substack and email, and to the description in the YouTube as well, so that people can access the link down in the description.
I have learned so much about what Viana does. It has been incredible. It has been an incredible school of learning. Watching her create, being part of this process with her.
I have learned a lot from you, Susan. And also, I want to give you, I feel immensely grateful with you for all the support you have given. Like, you have been also like a mentor for me, coach, and always giving me, pushing me. So this summit is also, you're part of it from the beginning, Knellee. So I just want to thank you, because you have been supporting us, the organizers, so much, and giving us, making us move forward, helping us pivot from the on-site to the virtual, and saying, go on, push through, don't give up, and that has been invaluable for us. And I also didn't know what to expect from today's session, the truth, but it definitely exceeded my expectations, and I loved it. Like, I completely agree with everything you said, and I'm very grateful for you for sharing all your knowledge with us, and for all your support and your love that you give us too, because you're an immensely loving person too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I want to share what we have with the world. The Be Nature program is starting this week online. There's also an in-person retreat that I'm going to share. Now, this is just like a summary of what we cover, which we've kind of covered in this, in the one session, we've covered a snapshot of these 8 elements: understanding our nature, shifting from disconnection to communion, relating with reciprocity, the intergenerational relationships that we explored through this practice just now, restoring our power to heal and transform, living with circularity and compassion, and what does regenerative action in our work actually look like. So very concrete, and the intended outcomes is not just for ourselves, but really how does it transform the ways in which we show up in the world, and even have a global impact through small actions at the community level, or big ones at the national level. So the course is happening. It's every Thursday from 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern time. You can count this as part of your professional development. So if your employer has, like your HR department has a plan for your professional development, you can include this and do this during your workday. In Honduras, it's from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. In the US, Eastern time, 12 to 2 p.m. for 8 consecutive Thursdays. And if you're in Central European time, then it's 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. We have folks chiming in. We already have people who are from Africa, from Europe, from the United States, from Latin America and the Caribbean participating. So that time in the middle of the day is like the best time to catch all of the time zones as well. It's a very global experience. The groups we keep very small. We don't go beyond 15 to 20 people max if we can. So make sure if you're interested, you let us know. There is a silent solo retreat. I was talking about it, that Suzanne had that experience where we really allow you to, we set the container for you to have a retreat. So even though it's online, we spend a lot of time off screen, but we also learn how to use the tools of visualization and imagination to bring nature to us in moments when we might be on a plane or we might be stuck in a building, and right, to make it practical.
Well, my boys keep asking, Mommy, when are you going to do your next one?
Yeah.
They enjoyed that
So
retreat way more.
the beauty of the program is that once you take the course, you're always invited back to do the solo retreat when we do it. So on November 8th, Suzanne, you and other alum can come back and do the silent retreat with us. And really we're also going to be providing tools and support, not just in the course, but beyond. We have a community of practice. So when we invite you in, this is about having a safety net, a space where you can incubate your ideas, get support from your peers, get support from myself and my co-facilitator. We coach you through that journey. We have a certification program. So once you go through the online course, there's that. The in-person retreat, if you want to experience Be Nature in person, I highly recommend it. I think Vienna has already pre-registered. In the handout that I'm going to provide, there's the link and everything is there. So once you pre-register in January of 2026, the full registration, this is actually being hosted by the Rocky Mountain Ekodharma Retreat Center. It's 6 days in the Rocky Mountains, the natural environment, and all of your inner stuff. I mean, it's going to be mostly in silence, not exclusively silent, but Piero and I, who are facilitating this retreat, we're really just the guides. Nature is the facilitator. So it's really going to be a beautiful, deeply transformative experience. So you can pre-register now to hold your spot because it's in really high demand. And then, if you need to reach out to me, this is thrown off a little bit, I will also share my contact information. But just to remember, having a beginner's mind, nature is always renewing itself, and we can always renew our minds as a way to tap into that renewal power of nature. So I just want to show on the screen the handout so folks know what to expect. So I created this handout. So because we've talked about a lot of things, and some people kind of are like, oh my gosh, I need to take notes. So this is just a handout with my background and my organization. This link takes you to the trailer for Healing People, Heal the Planet, which is a documentary series of how we actually do this work in community. And if you would like to see the film and you would like to learn how to replicate those actions in your community, we do workshops that are just focused on that. So you can reach out to me. My contact information is on this handout, and we will be happy to schedule something that's kind of customized to your organization. And here are some freebies. Everybody likes freebies, right? So we have free audio practices at this link. This is the link to learn more about Be Nature. The flyer, this is the flyer to the Be Nature course that you will receive through this link, so that you can learn, just kind of share it with folks that you think might be interested. Are you seeing my PDF still?
The PDF, not the flyer.
Right, good. Okay, good. And then here in highlighted, we're giving 3 scholarships. It says here by September 22nd, because we wanted to, but I can actually change that. But we can make it work for later as well. But the course starts this Thursday. So if you're interested, you would need to reach out to me right away. So perhaps we can send an email out with the flyer just so folks can respond in a timely fashion. But even if you miss this round,
Yes, yes, please send me the PDF and anything you would like me to add. And I will add it to the members area in regeneratravel.com because this first model is free where you are. So anyone can register for free, make an account in regeneratravel.com, and they can see everything. They'll have access to the PDF, the flyer, your information, or website, your email. And also on the description, I can add a Google Drive link, maybe, so that they can access it on YouTube.
Perfect. And here's the
Let me know,
link
of
to
course.
pre-register for the retreat. This is a paper that we co-authored with some global partners from different universities about transforming planetary consciousness for a flourishing future. It's if you want to learn more about the frameworks I've been talking about and how you can apply this to whatever work you do, whether it's in the travel industry or in other spaces in education. This is a really, really good primer. It's a 10-page paper, but it's really well researched and documented, and I'm really proud to have been part of that, to be part of the Earthrise community. And here's some tips. So we talked about this. We didn't talk about stop and think, but here it is. So these are some tips of how you can regenerate yourself when you're experiencing strong emotion, or actually, no, this is not the right one. I have a different, let me share. This is the right version. So when you're experiencing strong emotion, or just
we're still seeing the other one now.
Yeah. So we talked about this. I changed it up while we were talking. In the session today, we talked about how to regenerate yourself. Let me make it a little bit bigger. We talked about how you can practice self-compassion. We talked a lot about that in terms of balancing the feminine and the masculine and what have you, and setting boundaries. So these are just some tips that, just for ourselves. And then how to create a regenerative mindset in your spaces, in your work, in your companies. These are some of, I like to put them in the form of questions, because you will arrive at the answers based on how you orient your minds, your collective mindset in your workspace. So how are my practices, policies, and programs in harmony with the flow and pace of nature? How are we modeling care for human and more than human life forms of the ecosystem in our work? How can we create experiences that leave the ecosystem better than we found it? And how can we grow in love and care? How can we grow love and care through service in our activities? So sorry that I'm changing it in real time, because I'm adapting from what I had originally to what we actually discussed. And this will be available on the website. I'm available. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. This was 2.5 hours. So, I'm grateful for the opportunity, grateful to have started my day this way with everyone, and really, really deep gratitude for being included in this. Deep gratitude for all of the amazing people that are doing amazing work. It fills me with so much hope. And I think there's definitely a silent, or perhaps not so silent, revolution. And once we hit the tipping point, the last thought I'll share is, while I was in this amazing event. It was a social event, put on by this group, and there were all these amazing movers and shakers there during Climate Week. And I met this gentleman from Wales, and his name is Andy, I forget his last name, but he was telling me that he's working on regenerative initiatives. He's focused on the tipping point, and he said it takes 250 million people, I think, to reach a tipping point. So he's like, whatever you're working on, once you get to that, at first it looks dormant. At first it looks like it's not happening. But the minute you hit the tipping point, then all of a sudden you just start to see things change rapidly. It's kind of like the bamboo that stays 4 years in the earth, and then within a short period of time, it just shoots out of the ground and it grows from this big to like, 10, 20 feet tall, right? So I say this because we should not underestimate the power of what we're doing. And we need to think bigger and faster in terms of the potential impact of what we're doing and how we're orienting ourselves in imperfect ways, of course, but that we need to keep going because we don't know when we're going to hit the tipping point. It's hard to measure, right? But through our collective action and our collective and continuing to do this, what you're doing to bring these minds together is going to have a ripple effect. And I really think that it's important to acknowledge that. And thank you, Vienna. It's coming through you. This was your baby, and you've brought us on along for the ride, and you do it with such a generous spirit. You are really embodying the principles of regeneration just in your way of being. Even when you're stressed out, you're very kind. So I want to thank you so much. And I see this, the universe wants this to happen. Just
Thank
remember
you
that.
so much, Knellee.
So the
But
resources are gonna come.
oh, you're so wonderful and kind. Thank you. But really, you have been such a big part of it, because with all your support and your, like motivation, I would have given up a long time ago. But since you guys are like, it's a great idea. Come on, move forward, make it happen however you can. So you guys are my inspiration, my mentors, and you are the part. This is also thanks to you. So I'm very grateful, and I want to thank you. And it's so interesting what you said about. I also think that we just have to continue. The losers are just the ones that give up. But if we keep going, no, we just have to win once, and we're gonna be winners. So yeah, and I think more people is becoming aware of this, and I think more people are wanting to join the community, the movement, and want to live a better life through being more conscious, more mindful, more in harmony with nature too. So I love it. And I also congratulate you for everything you're doing, because yeah, it's hard and I know it. So you're doing an amazing job too. Congratulations.
And I want to plant one seed, this is a new thing I've been doing before I leave. So I want to plant one seed and let's see where it goes. So with Vienna, we are going to do a Be Nature retreat in somewhere in Central America. So Vienna is going to come to Colorado. Hopefully we can do it before then, but if not, after is fine. And so my wish is for us to be able to do this in Honduras. And if not in Honduras, somewhere in Central America, because there's something vibrating in Central America. And for some reason, because of Suzanne, Honduras keeps coming back to me. But this is a seed that I'm planting, that we're able to do an in-person retreat, not just for those who are serving through this summit, but for anyone that's watching and wants to be part of this. If you can't make it to the United States, that we're able to offer something in your region. So planting
Well, I
that.
kind of mentioned this to Vienna actually last week, but someone told me of a property that is in a region that's right in the center of the city, that is very close to a river, very close to a property that I love. And they're like, yeah, that's my family zone. So like, really? And they're like, haven't you visited? I said, well, I've seen it, but he says it's just there. It was sort of like an echo school, but then after COVID, it kind of fell into, but all of it is there. And it's a beautiful extension of land that easy access. I mean, definitely it has all the workings for a retreat in San Pedro Sula.
Yeah,
It has all the
we'll,
workings
we'll
of
see.
it.
We'll see what
We'll organize it.
We'll
We
see
will make it happen.
I think we have to want to go back to remembering that the space will call us, right? So whether it's
Yes,
here or somewhere else, planting the seeds so that the space that wants that to happen will call us, and we'll find the right space. And the way we know is that there won't be resistance. It'll come with ease.
exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Well, the place was
Right back
offered
to
to
where we
me.
started.
The place was offered to me whenever I want to do whatever I want. So
There we go.
the place was
We'll
offered
take
before I mean, we've always talked about it, but we really like a place that I thought I wanted. It just did not ever manifest. It didn't happen there. But this other person, it just whatever you want, just let me know and we'll go. I
Yeah,
said, okay.
sounds like a plan. All right, thank you, ladies, so much, and thank
Thank
you
you very
everyone
much.
for participating. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yes.
Try
Happy
to go
Sunday,
outside.
everyone. Ciao.
So this we
Bye bye.
close off our day 2 with Regenera Travel Summit 2025. It's online, so we have a little more flexibility with time, but we do want you to keep looking, keep exploring, meet, connect with our presenters. A lot of them are doing amazing things, and we see you tomorrow. We continue with day 3.